Hi, I'm Tangela Johnson, and I am an organizational development consultant and executive coach, and I'm the president of NGC. I want to talk to you today a little bit about leadership. Leadership is one of my passions. I get to work with all kinds of amazing leaders, and I see people at all levels struggle with leadership. Some excel, some exceed in certain areas, and fall short in other areas. But one of the things about leadership is that you have to know who you are. Your power comes from that self-understanding. And I've always thought about leadership, and the main reason is because I have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful father. My dad is by far the greatest leader that I know. He was able to come out of his circumstances and change his family's direction generation after generation. Things like integrity, honesty, your ability to see a vision and achieve that for someone greater than yourself. He was able to do all of those things for his family. And to me, there's no greater honor than that. There are a few things that I learned from my dad, lots of things actually, that I learned from him, that I use in my practice today. And I also share that same wisdom with my clients. So I want to talk to you about 7 of those things that I learned from my dad, leadership traits and characteristics that are very, very powerful principles. The first thing I learned from my dad is to ask questions frequently, even if the answers are obvious. When I was a little girl, 4 or 5 years old, I would ask my dad a question, and he would in turn ask me a question. And he did that throughout my life as a kid. And so one day in my preteens, I asked him, I said, "Dad, why is it that when I ask you a question, you ask me a question?" And he said, there are 2 reasons. One, I want you to learn how to think for yourself. I also want you to know how to make decisions and own those decisions. If you are a leader, your ability to ask the right questions is extremely important. You learn yourself, and you also help your people grow and gain confidence. Second thing I learned from my dad is that people need emotionally consistent leaders. Rarely did I see my dad get angry when things went wrong. He was always consistent emotionally. People trust leaders who can manage their emotions. When you are inconsistent emotionally, one day you come in the office and you're upset. The next day you're happy. The next day you're silent. People can't trust that, and it also breeds fear. The third thing I learned from my dad is that self-discipline is a core value of achievement. Your ability to self-discipline in almost every area of your life is extremely important to you being effective. The fourth thing I learned from my dad is that keeping your word can often come at personal sacrifice. We all admire people who keep their word. We all want to be people who are thought of as people of integrity. However, keeping your word can come at a cost, but it is worth it. It is worth it. I told my dad that I had spoken of him when I was facilitating a class several years ago. And I said, "Dad, I told the class that in all of my years, in all of my life, you've never broken your word to me once." And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and in that moment in time, I could see that at the end of the day, it cost him something to keep his word to his family. Very, very powerful. And when I went into business, and I was asking him for a loan, he said, "You make sure that you keep your word to your clients and your customers." That was the only business advice he gave me. The fifth thing that I learned from my dad is optimism and faith are necessities. They're non-negotiable because life will throw you things that you won't be able to handle if you allow yourself to go into a negative place. So my dad is always optimistic, and he's a man of faith, and so those things allow you to continue to get up when life gets difficult. The sixth thing I learned from my dad is to speak greatness into everyone you can, and do that constantly. All of us are unique and special. We have gifts and we have talents, so A leader should look for those traits and abilities in the people that they lead. And then they should speak those things to that person. That builds a tremendous amount of trust and confidence in that individual. My dad did that to me and to my brothers all of our lives, and he still does. He still does. And the last thing I learned from my dad that is very, very powerful is the truth is always the right answer. Sometimes we fear telling the truth because it may hurt someone or it may be painful, but at the end of the day, the truth is always going to provide the right answer because it builds relationships, it heals situations. So if you're in a leadership position, transparency is an amazing attribute for a leader to have because people can trust you, people can believe in you, and they can follow your vision. Now, like I said earlier, there are lots of other things I learned from my dad, and he has been a wonderful influence in my life. And I'm very, very fortunate to have had such a leader model his life in front of me. I'm Tangela Johnson, president of NGC. Check us out on the website at www.ngcee.com.